Hello, my name is Jennifer Skinner and this is my Theory to Practice presentation. So I had the opportunity to attend a small elementary school in a rural town called Augusta, Montana. Throughout my elementary years, I only had 7 other classmates, and this continued on throughout high school. One of the things I was very grateful for was having a smaller class size, because not only did it create a safe learning environment, but it also allowed for an excellent teacher-to-student ratio in the classroom, which resulted in more differentiated and individualized instruction. So one of the most influential teachers I had in my educational experience was my 4th and 5th grade teacher, Miss Bink. One of the reasons she was so influential was because she encouraged all students to become lifelong learners. Continually throughout the year, she was offering constructive criticism and also positive feedback to her students. Miss Bink also integrated choice into educational projects. For example, we had a monthly book report we had to complete, and she allowed us to choose whatever book we wanted to for these projects. She also created a student-centered learning environment. Lecture time was kept at a minimum, and a lot of times we had the opportunity to participate in group discussions with our peers. She also implemented engaging projects into the classroom, which I will be discussing later on in this presentation. So throughout my educational experience, there were a lot of structures in the classroom that I found both effective and not effective. Some of the effective structures were read-aloud time, and I felt like this was effective because it allowed us as students to see what it looked like to read with fluency and emotion, and also just to understand comprehension skills as well. We also had silent reading time, and this was just a great time to just leisurely practice reading skills. We also had project-based learning. Throughout the year, we were creating a wide variety of projects in groups and had a lot of tasks that we had to figure out on our own rather than just having the teacher tell us the answer, and I felt like this was very effective as well. We also had writer's workshop, bell work, and a daily journal. And I remember the bell work was very effective because as soon as we walked in the classroom, there was immediately something for us to work on and just to help us get our brains engaged in what we were going to be learning that day. The daily journal was also a great time for reflection, and the last 15 minutes of each school day we had the opportunity just to spend time writing, and it was a great time to practice our writing skills and also being able to reflect on our day or just write about whatever we wanted to. Some of the structures that I found were not effective was the daily oral language, leveled reading groups, worksheets, workbook, and solely lecture time. And we did have a few teachers who would spend the whole class period lecturing and then would give us our assignment as homework. And I don't think this was effective because not only was it disengaging, but it also required us as students to complete the work outside of class, and if we had any questions, the teacher wasn't available to help us with those. So some memorable projects that I thought were effective were in 5th grade. I had the opportunity to do a research project on China, and as students we had the opportunity to choose any country we wanted to research, and we got to research the culture, the flag, the symbolism of the country, any current events, and any past historical events that we found were important. And we got to create a book for our classmates to look through on each of these countries. And I just remember this was fun because we did put a lot of effort into these projects, and it was great to have something to share with our families and also with our classmates. We also had a wax museum at my school, and once a year we got to practice our speaking and listening skills by choosing a historical character and creating a presentation on this character. We also had a daily poetry journal in which we got to write in. And this was a great way just to practice a variety of types of poetry, and I really think this helped stem my love for poetry as well. So there are a variety of learning theories, and just some that resonate with me. First and foremost, behaviorism, and this theory was developed by B.F. Skinner. It is teacher-centered and it focuses on extrinsic rewards. I think behaviorism is important because I do believe it's important to have clear rules and procedures set forth in your classroom in order just to have strong classroom management. Another theory that resonated with me was constructivism, and this was developed by Jerome Bruner. And this focuses more on learning through discovery and integrates scaffolding as well. And I think constructivism is important because it allows students to learn just their own way and how allows them to understand the content. And it also takes into account students' individual interests, which I think is important, and allows the teacher to be more of a facilitator than an instructor. And the last learning theory that I also believe is important is humanism, and this was developed by Socrates and Plato. And this theory is more student-centered and requires intrinsic motivation. And I think the reason this theory really resonates with me is because I think reflective thinking is so important, and this theory just allows students to really base their learning more off of their experiences and their thoughts. So the Common Core ELA strands, there are 4: reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. And I believe it is important to integrate all 4 into the classroom. I think having a daily reading time where students can either leisurely read or have read aloud time with the teacher, I think that is important. I also think writing, having a daily journal log once again, whether it be for poetry or just reflective writing, is very important. And I think that's a great way for students to practice and improve in their writing skills. I also think presentations throughout the year are important because this allows students to practice their speaking and listening skills, and also just having a collaborative learning environment in which students can learn from one another. This also helps improve those speaking and listening skills. And lastly, language just is everywhere, and I think it's important for students to understand new vocabulary terms, and I think a great way to do this is having students keep a daily vocabulary log in which they're able to write down any words that they don't understand or don't know that they encounter on a daily basis, and it allows them to take that initiative in researching these words and understanding the definitions on their own, and having the opportunity to share that with their classmates as well. So my ideal classroom layout, as you can see, I'd hope to have the students grouped at tables with 4 to 6 students per table. I think this just builds that collaborative learning environment that I hope to have, and it also just allows students to learn from their peers and have the opportunity to interact with their peers on a daily basis. I also hope to have technology in the classroom. So you can see a computer lab over on the right side, and a projector or a smart board. Just for, I think technology is important, and it's a great resource that we can use as well. I also have to have a reading circle, which students can have that quiet time and that independent reading time, and also just a table on the right side also where students, I can have one-on-one interventions with the students, and yeah, that would just be a great resource to have in working individually with each student. Some strategies and activities I hope to integrate into my own future classroom. I believe peer review time is very important. Once again, it allows students to interact with one another. I also hope to integrate the reading and writing workshop model into my classroom because I also think it's important that I am more of a facilitator and not so much lecturing to the students. And yeah, I hope to follow just a gradual release of responsibility model in regards to the reading and writing workshop. I also hope to have project-based learning in my classroom, which is aligned to students' individual interests and allows them to work on something that they are passionate about as well. I also hope to integrate technology into a variety of my activities and hope to have multiple group discussions and a daily journal log in which students can also practice their own writing skills and just reflect on their day as well. Lastly, I do believe it is important to integrate ELA into all of the content areas, whether it be history, science, math. I think just some examples of activities that I hope to integrate into other content areas. For a history class, I think it would be fun for students to choose a specific historical character and write a personal narrative about this character. I also think students can, for math, could create a presentation showing how to solve fraction multiplication. And you could also do this in a group project so that each student has a role. And this allows students to really practice those speaking and listening skills that we had talked about. Also for science, I think a creative way you could have students explain the scientific method would be using poetry, and you could hang up those poems around the classroom so that students are continually reminded of this process, and that's a fun way to integrate writing of, into science as well. So that concludes my theory to practice presentation. Thank you very much.